Well, hello everybody. Today I'm going to talk to you about K9W Wake Atoll Dxpediton, also known as Wake Island, that happened last November. Now you can see it was pretty high up on the DX Most Wanted list for Club Log and for DX Magazine. As you can see, Wake Island is in the middle of the Pacific, about 5,000 miles from California and 2,000 miles from Japan. It's actually 3 islands that make up Wake Atoll: Peel, Wilkes, and Wake Island. A British sea captain discovered Wake Island back in 1796, and it was later annexed by the U.S. in 1899. It's actually a volcano that built this island, and it has a huge lagoon in the center. It has 12 miles of coastline, providing for a 9,800-foot runway there at the bottom. It's a balmy 80 to 85 degrees pretty much every day of the year, except when the occasional typhoon hits. Now, this island's on the other side of the international date line, making it truly where America's day begins. Wake Island was first settled in 1935 when Pan Am Airways built a 48-room hotel as a stopover for flights between San Francisco and Hong Kong. In early 1941, over 1,700 civilian and military personnel arrived on the island to construct a military base and airfield. Now, December 7th, when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, they also simultaneously attacked Wake Island, which is December 8th, Wake Island time. They held them off for 3 days, sinking 2 Japanese destroyers, 2 transports, and a submarine, making it the first Japanese defeat of the war and giving Wake Island the reputation as the Alamo of the Pacific. Now, after 12 days of heavy fighting, the Japanese finally took control of the island. They rounded up all the U.S. military and civilian personnel and sent them to POW camps in Asia, except for 98 civilian contractors, who became known as the Forgotten 98. They kept them behind to help construct barricades, bunkers, tunnels, runways, etc. Now, October 5th, 1943, almost 2 years later, the USS Yorktown II led a fierce air raid on Wake Island. Their goal was to destroy the Japanese aircraft and airfield. But fearing imminent invasion, the Japanese admiral had the 98 civilian contractors executed. This was a real tragedy since the U.S. had no intention of landing on Wake Island. Now, after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the Japanese on Wake Island finally surrendered, and the admiral was hanged in Guam. So how did the Wake Island Dxpedition begin? Well, Lou, the team's leader, N2TU, was watching a documentary all about Wake Island on the History Channel. He learned about the Forgotten 98 and was so moved by the story that he got in contact with General Carlisle about putting together a commemorative event. Now here's a look at the actual schedule for K9W, which shows how many months in advance you have to prepare before you even step foot on the island. Once the team gets assembled, the first thing you're going to want to do is set up a website, because that's where you're going to generate your support for this DXpedition. John, K6MM, put together this beautiful website. He actually found a book on Wake Island with the photographs of a lot of the Forgotten 98, and he put this on the website as a tribute to them, and it really humanized this DXpedition. It was a painstaking task, but well worth it, as you can see here. Now here's a list of all the equipment that needed to be sent to Wake Island, but first needed to be tested out. And here's some of the staging area before shipping it all the way to Honolulu, Hawaii. Not only that, but propagation charts needed to be created from all the regions of the world. Thanks to the government shutdown, they found out on Monday, October 28th, that they needed to be in Hawaii by Wednesday so they could be on Wake Island by Friday. But they did it. Here they are boarding the 1 a.m. shuttle to Hickam Air Force Base and checking in at the gate. They had a little time to kill, so they decided to have a little pre-meeting. The main topic of discussion: first and foremost, remember and honor the Forgotten 98. Get as many good QSOs as you can, and above all, have fun. And there's the sighting of Wake Island and the aircraft they flew in on. There's beautiful Wake Island Airport. They got a small orientation by their hosts. And there's the CEO of the island. And then it was off to downtown Wake Island to check into their sleeping quarters. When they finished checking into the room, it was off to check on the gear, which had arrived safely. It was easy to distribute it into the two separate camps since everything was labeled. Circled here on the east end of the island is the CW camp at the old abandoned chapel. They had to get the gear here, unpack, get everything set up, get it all tested, and begin operation, where every QSO was a blessing. And here's looking out the back door of the chapel, the site of the Step IR verticals, along with the 60-foot Battle Creek Special for 80 and 160. Now moving on to the single sideband, RIDI and 6-meter camp is at the Old Beach House, also known as The Shack. It's a beautiful view. How would you like to operate looking at that? Now that lagoon only averages 4 to 5 feet in depth all the way across to the other island. And they had another set of Step IR verticals, along with an 8-element 6-meter Yagi, which gave them 1,180 QSOs on 6 meters. They had to set up all 3 stations, get those working properly, and they really set everything up for the maximum efficiency. And N1MM was the logging software of choice. Now all the operators end up on a team. It's a lot easier to do your scheduling when you're with a team. And here's your CW operators: K9CT, K9NW, N9TK, NA6M, K9ZO, and AA4NN. And your sideband operators: W8GEX, W30A, K6MM, WB9Z, W8HC, and our team leader, N2TU. On a DXpedition, you usually have about 4 things you can do: eat, sleep, operate, and wander. Well, 5 if you add repair and maintain, because something always breaks down. But should you wander, this is some of the sights you could see on Wake Island, because it is one of the most preserved battlefields in the world. The team was honored to have Commanding General Robling visit. The food provided was great, including the all-you-can-eat ice cream. And here's a look at some of the amenities the island had to offer. And here's some of the wildlife and scenery on the island. And this is where the island got their power. And a look at the old radio room. And here's a look at the Forgotten 98 Memorial, the main focus of this DXpedition. On Veterans Day, our team leader, N2TU Lou, had the honor to read off the names of all of the Forgotten 98 on the air. It was very moving. And here's members of the team attending the Veterans Memorial Day service. Well, all good things must come to an end. And here's a look at the breakdown by band and mode. And if you look at the bottom right, they made over 100,000 contacts while on Wake. And of course, every successful DXpedition needs a good support crew like JA1WSX, K6TD, K6TU, KH6CG, KH7U, MM0MDX, N1DG, ND2T, yours truly, NV9L, Janet, W8CAA, and Margaret Blackwell. And of course, where would we be without the generous support of the NCDXF, Indexa, as well as our equipment, club, and individual contributors? Recently, at the largest European hamvention, Friedrichshafen, the Wake Island DXpedition won 3 major DX awards for 2013. And that's your look at the DXpedition in honor of the Forgotten 98 on Wake Island K9W, where America's Day begins.